Good afternoon, good evening, and a good morning, and greetings of the day. And we warmly welcome you right here from CCE Finland, Bangalore, and Finland. And a very, very warm welcome to our session, which is celebrating the International Day of Education to 2021. And my name is Simran Balani. Once again, thank you very much for joining us. And we are talking about communication today. But let's look at why we are doing it today on this auspicious day. All educators will agree that education is the most powerful force in our hands to tackle global issues such as poverty, health, and economic growth. It is also a human right and a public responsibility. To make the right to education more effective, United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution January 24th as International Day of Education. And the theme for this year is Recover and Revitalize Education for the COVID-19 Generation. And we at CCE Finland thought, what a best way to talk about this theme via communication, the X factor in an educator's career. So we warmly welcome Ms. Vidya Murthy, who is CEO Bassett Education India, Territory Head APER, Executive Coach and Trainer, Communication Strategist, to talk to us about what impact does communication have in the professional life of an educator. What are different styles of communication that educators can adopt to enhance their impact? What are some tips and tools for effective communication with various stakeholders that an educator works with? And to gain these insights, we will go over to Vidya. A warm welcome, Vidya, and thank you so much for doing this for us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to be in conversation with educators from around our globe. I recall that last year, the theme to celebrate this auspicious day revolved around our planet and people and peace and prosperity. And of course, we've all been thrown out of gear a little bit here because of COVID, isn't it, Simran? And no wonder this time, we are trying to kind of weave together the challenges that I think all humanity faces as a whole. It's an honor to be here. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Murthy, and we are here today to talk about communication. And even before I think we talk about communication, it's going to be important for us to kind of identify and believe that it is worthy of this conversation. In fact, I have often referred to communication as the salt skill. Salt. No matter how grand the menu, I don't think that there is any meaning in food without salt. And I, as an expert in communication, have come to believe, after working with people from all over the world, that there is no doubt that communication is the underlying current that directs all of our energies, that defines our career paths, that defines the quality of our professional lives, and it even transcends into the quality of our personal lives. So, without much ado here, if Simran, it's okay, may I share my screen? And
absolutely, you may do so.
Wonderful. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm guessing that will give us a roadmap to. Can you all see it?
Not yet.
Let me know, Simran.
No, not yet. You might want to present now and your entire screen.
Yes, I did.
No, I can't see it as yet.
Okay. You should be able to momentarily.
Okay.
Technology for a reason. There
Sure.
you go. It eventually works.
All right.
All right. Okay. So once again, I think over the next few minutes, what I'm going to be doing is talking about the life of an educator. It's not an ordinary job. What you all do is truly extraordinary. The impact of your work extends, I think, beyond your classroom into generations. I think my parents' teachers had an impact on the quality of my life because they shaped how my parents think. And I think that whether it is actively or unconsciously or even in a collateral fashion, a lot of what an educator does is influenced by the way he or she communicates. We take it for granted. Please don't. I think over the next 30 minutes or so, I hope you all leave with a solid insight of where you stand, the importance of consciously and incrementally monitoring your communication skill. Believe this: no one is born a great communicator. It's a learned behavior. It's a learned behavior that people work on day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and decade after decade. And it is over that period of time, that word called experience, that all of us learn to consciously monitor the kind of vibes that we put out. We kind of become aware of how we are making the other person feel. We become aware of the words that we choose. We have a certain amount of sophistication that becomes inbuilt into us because you know that you don't have to always trample over other people's ego. You want to stay clear of hurting people, but you still want to get your point across. You learn the art of diplomacy, you learn the art of negotiation, of making other people feel awesome about themselves. And isn't that true? Don't we all want to work with people, for people who make us feel good about ourselves? And what greater profession than an educator's to be conscious of the vibes that we all put out? Hence, I call it the X factor because if you ask me, it determines pretty much everything in your career. Your classroom experience, your experience outside the classroom, your experience online, talking to parents, your experience at a PTA, your experience at a school event, your experience in a teacher meeting, your experience in a meeting in your school boardroom with the owner of your school, with your school superintendents, with your school principals, so on and so forth, regardless of which country you are in. And that's why we call it the X factor. It really is the X factor because what a teacher is more important than what he or she teaches. And think about that for a minute, please. What a teacher is more important than what he or she teaches. You know, my children, especially the older one, is getting ready to go off to college now. But I remember some advice that I got when I was a new mother. And I was told that I must always remember that my child or my children will never do as I ask them to do. They will only do as I do. No wonder a child is considered the father of man. And what a teacher is therefore more important than the subject or the academic curriculum that you teach. And how you communicate reflects what you are. Make no mistake about it. This is science, this is data. All over the globe, I think teachers have a special place, regardless of which country. I worked across 3 different continents, and in every continent that I've been on, teachers have a special place in the hearts of the students that they teach. And especially for some reason, in the K through 12 segment, we tend to have a more deeply embedded memory, a more profound impact on our personalities. And we remember the teachers from our K through 12 levels. And that's why I just wanted to share with you a very, very interesting happening. It's true, this happened with the President of India back in 1994. And he traveled on an official trip to Oman. And when he landed at Muscat, three really strange things happened. The Sultan of Oman, it almost is an unwritten rule that he's so senior, the king in his own country, that he almost never goes to the airport to receive anybody, even if it is the Queen of England. But this time, because President Sharma was there, he did go to the airport. Not only did he go to the airport, he went inside the plane. Not only did he go inside the plane, when they walked back to his car, he drove President Sharma himself. People around him who knew him well were astounded. Of course, this was a serious deviance in behavior from what they had seen in the past in the unwritten code of royal life in Oman. And when they asked him, he said, I didn't do it because he was the president of India. I studied in the city of Pune, and he was my professor back then. And I just thought that the story was so telling that a king who has an incredible amount of wealth, an incredible amount of power, and perhaps a great amount of ego as well. I mean, maybe some of it is well deserved too. Even them, in all their humility, they remember the difference that a professor or a teacher made in their life. And why am I sharing this story with you? Because it's about time that someone asked our teachers to pause. You're making a profound impact. You have no idea of the impact that you're having. Every compliment that you're paying in a class, every time you harshly reprimand a student, every time you encourage a child to do better, every time you convince a parent that their child is more than okay, that their child is brilliant and will no doubt have a fabulous future. Every time you're in negotiations with your principal and you're telling them that an effort is worth it, every time you are trying to increase your market visibility when you are taking part at an event or a webinar or a seminar among teacher associations in your cities across the globe. Remember this, your impact is something that is almost immeasurable, intangible, and permanent. Intangible and permanent because I can't measure the impact that my teachers had on me. And maybe others can feel it. I know it has shaped my thought beyond a measurable level. And it's permanent because I'm not studying formally anymore. And it's going to take a tremendous amount of external force to change the way that my teachers have shaped and nurtured me to think. And that is what all of you are doing. You're doing that using your words, your actions, your attitudes, behaviors, and opinions. Please learn those three words, your attitudes, behaviors, and opinions. And this is not what I am saying, it's what applied behavioral psychology has defined as the parameters that extend influence from one human to another. And that is what happens when you talk in class. When you're out in all of those examples that I gave you, communicating with other social beings, which is why there is no doubt, and I will argue with anybody on this, that communication is indeed the X factor in your career. It is true, isn't it? I just didn't fall in love with economics. I loved my economics teacher. I loved the way he taught economics. I loved the way he was encouraging, positive. He romanticized economics. There was a mystery to it, there was a magic to it. And till today, it remains one of my most favorite subjects. And if you all reflect on why you like certain subjects over others and why you even became good at it, it's probably because you had an incredible teacher, a teacher who was memorable, who made you feel good, who taught the subject in the way that it was supposed to be taught, developing a love for the subject. And that is why I think communication matters. I've explained to all of you why you should all, and it's completely worth your time. It's worth your energy. It's worth your financial resources as well to invest in communication because it's being a teacher. Of course, it is about your subject expertise. If you're teaching geography, if you're teaching science, or if you're teaching Spanish, by all means, you need to know your subject. There is no second guessing. A doctor needs to know medicine. An IT worker needs to know how to write code. And I think a genetic engineer needs to know how to do his research. But beyond that, when it's a given that you have your domain expertise, what is it then that takes you to the next level in your career? What is it that makes you feel happy and content when you hit the bed at night? Don't you all work incredibly hard? Across the globe, there are countries like Finland that have managed to keep schools open. And in some other nations, like India, for example, education continues. Teachers have gone above and beyond to ensure the continuity of the delivery of educational services. Children are still online. It's magic. And what is really powering you, all of you, through all of this? Isn't it your ability to think outside the box, to communicate, to reassure, to motivate, to prove, to negotiate, to manage conflict, to manage emotion? That is why communication matters. If you're all putting in 40-hour weeks, 80-hour weeks, 60-hour weeks, sometimes you wake up on a Sunday, you're still sending out emails. On a Sunday evening, some of you in some countries are still trying to get your administrative work done, your paperwork done. Listen, a teacher's life and role has transformed itself. The whole world can see it. You're not just teaching anymore. You're creating videos, you're creating content, you're doing an increased amount of paperwork. You've become event managers, you've become, team administrators. You are becoming socializers because you're constantly rallying people together to support a new idea. And maybe it's a group of people who are parents of your students. But it still was something that teachers did not do a decade ago or 2 decades ago. And look at the amount of time that it has consumed in your professional life. Look at the effort. You're working incredibly hard. You're hitting it every Monday morning. Why? Please tell me. Why is it not worth it to do just a tad bit more for yourself, to consciously monitor yourself, to become aware that there is something that you perhaps don't know and that you can learn it very easily, and that all it needs is a little bit of practice, but it has to be conscious. And if you were only able to make the needle move that little bit, it's like throwing a stone in a lake. The stone falls at one point, but the ripples are throughout. And that's why I believe in the magical power of somebody's ability to communicate well, to communicate with a certain class, a class that reflects a sophistication of thought, that you understand the domain that you're operating in. You more than are aware of the high emotion environment that all of you are operating in. And that's why I think communication matters. It matters your subject expertise, your passion to teach, your knowledge of the curriculum that you're teaching, your knowledge of pedagogical practices, your knowledge of learning methodologies, of assessment and alternate assessment patterns. All of these are important. But there is another layer that tops all of these elements of domain expertise, which I believe is communication. And like I said, I think it's the salt skill because one educator deals with another because it is a fundamental way in which all of you are trying to influence and create impact. And we are all social animals. None of us can function in isolation. Everything that we all say and do, even in a professional setting, has a profound influence on how we feel. It does have an emotional impact. It's very, very hard, nearly impossible for a person to be completely stressed out at work and perfectly happy in their personal lives because there is going to be that spillover. Our life is not dividable into watertight compartments. Work is going to spill over into home. Home spills over into social life. Social life spills over into health. Health spills over into finance. And they're all interconnected. And by the word social, I mean that man needs another man. We're all bundles of emotions, temperaments, walking around. And in particular, all of you will agree that education is a high emotion profession. It is. You're dealing with somebody's child. There are very few things that are more emotional than that. So people tend to be unreasonable. They tend to overreact. And like I said, I think the traditional role of a teacher has transformed itself over the past 10 or 15 years. Excuse me, I just need to get my charger and I'll be back in a minute. One moment, please.
No problem, Vidya.
I'm so sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So we were talking about how the traditional role of a teacher has become more complex over the last decade. And there's the concept of sphere of influence and sphere of control. And a lot has been researched about this, not just in the field of education, but in the corporate world as well. We at Bassett Education India, in fact, have a whole module that's dedicated to this for people who aspire for senior leadership positions on how they can not just influence how others think and feel, but also how they act. And that when it translates to action, it then becomes the sphere of control. Obviously, an educator has a profound influence on the lives of their students. And COVID 19 happened. And I don't think there's any facet of our lives that has not been transformed in some way because of this terrible disease. It then becomes important, isn't it, that teachers focus on themselves, which is why we urge educators to do something for themselves and look inwards and change the course of your career. This is what I think education can do for your career. It helps define your personal brand. When you take a name, a random name, Lisa Jones, let's just say a teacher at middle school, science. When I just say a name in a school, it reflects a lot more. She's building a reputation. There are adjectives that are attached to her name. And you want to be conscious of what adjectives are attached to yours. So it's time that you take control of defining your own personal brand within the ecosystems that you're operating in. Of course, it helps establish trust and builds reputation over a period of time. You know why? Because when you communicate, you become conscious of how you make the other person feel. And when you leave a positive feeling over a period of time, you are magically, automatically building an amazing reputation for yourself. It kind of makes anybody in any field a more well rounded professional, a more global professional. And the benefits of knowing how to communicate, I truly believe, transcend into your personal lives. You kind of learn how to frame things better, to think before you speak, to listen. You watch your nonverbals, and we'll come to that in the next couple of slides or so on the different elements of communication. But I have learned that communication can truly transform the quality of your life because it can significantly reduce your levels of professional stress. There's no doubt about that. And most importantly, for every teacher who is at it day in and day out, for every educator who's trying to cope with the changes in laws that are ruling pretty much every country and are changing so often these days, for teachers who are coping with the requests of parents. And I know I'm a parent myself and I still have a child in school. I can be unreasonable as a mother when I talk to their teachers. I become another version of me. That's because I move into the high emotion, high stakes fear because now I'm talking about my child and I cannot be rational, but the teacher needs to be. So I think it definitely gives you the careers that you earn and deserve. And here's something else, it improves the quality of the conversations in your classroom because it can seriously impact classroom engagement. I know there's so many new methodologies and older methodologies that teachers are employing in order to make learning more effective. Experiential learning, for example, being one of them. But there is still something that you can do that might be very easy to do that can make you memorable and effective. It enhances your visibility and it enhances your influence, not just over your peers, but it can definitely influence your seniors, the senior leadership of your school, or if you're already a leader at your school, then other leaders at other schools. So here's very briefly touching on the different things or the different kinds of communication in an educator's life. The first is you have verbal communication. And verbal communication basically includes all things that are said orally, the words that you use, the tone with which you're saying it, um, and maybe the pitch of your voice. It has a little bit to do with intonations, the volume of your voice, not just the choice of words, but the structure of your content as a whole. When you are making a case, when you're trying to convince somebody, when you're delivering a program, when you're delivering a class lesson, all of these things form verbal communication. And then you have something called intangible or perceived communication. If Simran and I are in conversation, and if Simran tells me something, her communication is only great when I understand it in the sense that she meant it. So, perceived communication is ensuring that your messages are actually interpreted the right way. The third element is nonverbal communication. And this is huge, like huge. About 89% of all meaning that is transferred between two people when they are in conversation is nonverbal. You're actually getting more meaning, not just from what I'm saying. We are all not even in the same room. We are all spread across the globe. But you know what? Everything that you can see on your screens, down to, my hairstyle, the amount of light in the room that I'm in, everything that has nothing to do with words influences communication. And 89% of all meaning that is transferred between two people is nonverbal. Nonverbal is what is not said. It is the energy, the vibe, my expression, the degree to which I'm leaning forward, how my eyes are moving, how I'm using my hands, what I'm wearing, my jewelry, the lighting in the room, what you can see behind me, my background. All of this constitutes nonverbal communication. And then we have written communication. What you write on the board, what you write in your emails, what you write in your students' reports, what you turn in as inter-office or inter-school memos, all of that is written communication. And the last one is communication that extends beyond the classroom, is what happens when you say something in a classroom and the child takes it back with them and adds meaning to it and adds layers of meaning to it. Consciously or unconsciously, when they go back home. This does happen, and you all know it happens. There are words that leave a teacher's mouth that have a ripple effect, and that ripple effect manifests when the child or the student continues to process this thought and add layers of meaning on this. I just want to take a moment here to say that, Simran will be taking questions, and we will be taking all your questions at the end of this session. Um, when it would have been nice if this was more interactive, and we want it to be more interactive. So please, whether you're joining us live on YouTube or Facebook, please keep those questions coming. I'd be happy to take a few minutes at the end of today's talk and see if we can get you some answers at least. So please, all of you, do keep your questions coming in, and Simran will be sure to pass them on to me. So
Sure.
please do keep your questions coming, everybody. We just have a few more slides here to go. I'm not going to make this an extraordinarily long and taxing talk. I know a lot of us have a lot of webinar fatigue, you and me included, but I promise you that this is going to be well worth your time. I only have a few slides to go, and we should be wrapping up soon. And educators, stakeholders. Stakeholders are different groups of people who have some kind of vested interest in your work. And they're different groups of people. And as an educator's life becomes more complex, I think and there are more and more stakeholders that an educator is forced to be working with, and forced to think about, and forced to interact with, and eventually forced to influence. So if you have a teacher in the center, you have students, you have students who have already graduated from your class, you have students who are yet to come into your class. You have your professional associations in your own towns, in your own cities, in your own countries. You have other teachers, not just in the school that you teach in, but in your area schools, in other schools in your country. And I know that the visibility of a lot of teachers has grown exponentially because of all of this incredible amount of online interaction that so many countries are exchanging. And then there's the favorite group of parents that every teacher interacts with. And you have the important school management that all of you engage with on a daily basis. The decision makers or the power centers within your own educational institutions. So, why should we understand that there are different stakeholders? It's very, very simple. The vested interest for each of these stakeholders is different. The emotions are different. What they're looking for from you is different. Some may be positive and some are not positive. Some might just want to compete with you. For example, another teacher might compete with you, but your student is not competing with you. Sometimes a parent might compete with you because they want to prove that they know your job. And they can be unreasonable. And they're great parents too, who just kind of step back and let teachers do their thing. And it depends, but I'm certain that in all countries, there are all kinds of stakeholders, each with their own temperament and each with their own attitudes, opinions, and behaviors. Those are my favorite words that I had said some time ago. So think about these five groups and let's think about, why an educator needs to master the art of communication. Communication truly is how you make other people feel. It is about how much you get your way and how you don't hurt people and how you convince other people, how persuasive you can be, how strict you can be, how energizing you can be, motivating you can be. But at the end of the day, I think it is really about how much of an influencer you are, and which is why we have come to know, not just believe. We know that an educator needs a different strategy for every stakeholder group. The different tricks, different tools, different ways that you can use and you must use when you communicate with each of these groups. Because the issues are different, the content is different, and the objective is different. So when the issues are different, the context is different, the objective is different, and the vested interest is different, the demographic is different because your students are not the same demographic as your parent group, they're in a different age bracket. That's why there is a lot to learn, which is why CCE and BEI are so happy that we have a special certificate program just for you. And it might be well worth your time. You want to make an investment in yourself that's not too taxing, but that has a profound effect on the kind of professional that you are. You're not going to do it for us, certainly not. And don't do it for your spouse or your parents or your girlfriend or your dog. Do it for yourself. And here's a little bit about the program. It's a certificate program offered by the CCE. And it's really called the X Factor in an educator's career, communication. And this program is going to be easy peasy because we don't want it to be taxing. We want you to be able to walk away from it with implementable initiatives. When you are self motivated to put yourself on a path that you yourself are constantly monitoring, and you are aware of the impact that your actions are having, positive or not positive. And how do we hope to achieve that? We hope that starting mid February, for 3 consecutive weeks, once a week, just 2 hours, 120 minutes, we will have 3 interactive and engaging sessions. Interactive and engaging because we will then be truly in conversation. It will not be a one-way talk like I am giving you right now, because I really don't know how to have a one-way session. And it's very comprehensively designed with a lot of thought to provide you with tips, tools, and strategies that can almost be customized to your own specific personality type. You'd be amazed at its efficacy level. Because it's important that we leave you with something that works uniquely for you. You need to be a little bit more aware of yourself, of your positive aspects, of the areas of development within yourself as a professional. And we all know for sure and that can help us is we ourselves. So this journey has to be self-propelled. So this particular program that we are launching will be 3 sessions, 2 hours, once a week, and for 3 consecutive weeks starting mid-February. It will involve not just presentations, but it will involve case studies, examples, videos that we hope to use, and most importantly, the most important and transforming point of any training session is the interaction. It's what the participants say. You know, I love people who agree with me, but I honestly love the people who disagree with me a tad bit more because that's truly how I learn and grow. So if you're going to be taking these sessions and being a part of it, please join in and challenge what I'm saying, or agree and disagree, or say something or quote experiences from the past that will probably validate what I'm saying. So, yes, the key word here is self propelled, and it has to be conscious and it has to be incremental. I'm down to the last 4 minutes of my talk here, after which I'll be taking questions. So the idea is it's not theoretical at all. Communication is a very specialized field of science, and it's been researched for multiple decades from scientists on all continents. But the common takeaways that we will be recommending to you are truly embedded in applied behavioral sciences. And there are simple aspects of human psychology that if we all understand and just tune in ourselves to how all of us receive information, opinions, attitudes, behaviors, if you become cognizant of that, then you can automatically change the way that you do the same with others. And at the end of it, I'd only like to say that it has to be, conscious, and it has to be incremental. You can sit in a lot of training programs, but until and unless you remind yourself that there is a better version of yourself you can be, that you can make your hard work worth it, that you can get to the kind of professional that you are trying to become, and maybe you just need a few tips. And I like the word incremental because it reflects the fact that we have to work at it every day, bit by bit. And therefore, I think incremental is when we all are determined to be steadfast in our efforts. And you do it for yourself. When you do it for yourself consciously and incrementally, we promise you that a new version of yourself awaits. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you all join in the program. It's an international certificate program that starts mid-February, and we'd be so happy if you all joined us. And I'll take any questions for now.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
This talk of yours, even with my 25 years of experience, I know I'm one of the students for the course which is coming in February, because this is so simple yet so complex, and we in our day-to-day life forget when you talked about non-verbal communication. And I thought to myself, yes, there are so many times when I am sitting in front of people, and they could be any kind of stakeholders, and even if my facial expression changes a bit, and nowadays we call it as wives. All right. And there you go. You've lost the whole thing all over again, right? So yes, I really think that this course, more so in this times of new normal, has become very crucial because we are just not talking to a very small audience. I'm just talking it from the educator's point of view. They are not talking only to a little small audience that they did, which was their own classroom or their own lab. Now it has opened up. So communication becomes more and more critical each day. Hats off to you for covering so much in such little time. We have a couple of questions, and we want to thank for a minute for people joining us from Mexico, Spain, Nigeria, Vietnam, Japan, US, Norway, Sweden, India, Finland, Philippines. Thank you very, very much. And it is so encouraging to see each one of them joining us and being with us. Here is the first question for you, Vidya. Some insights into turning a difficult conversation with parents into a win-win situation, especially with the ongoing peculiarities associated with current online education scenario. And you have two more questions coming up.
Great, great. Thank you. If you could just repeat the first part of the question again, Simran.
Some insights into turning a difficult conversation with parents into a win-win situations, especially with the ongoing peculiarities associated with current online education scenario.
Okay. In order to make it most simple, can I suggest a four-step process? The first step, when a parent is engaged, I think, with a teacher, like I said, they can be irrational, they can be visibly angry, and it's obvious that they're not calm. And whenever a person is not in a frame of mind to be receptive to your ideas, the first thing is stop talking. Stop talking and listen. First, you listen. That's the first step. And when you listen with open ended questions. So let's say Simran's daughter is in my class. Simran comes to me and she's furious. And I am asking Simran as she's ranting and raving, I'm asking her open ended questions. So, open ended questions are questions that don't have a definitive yes or a no in their answer. So I'm asking Simran, what do you think that we can do to stop your daughter or from feeling in this negative way? Or what do you think that would help you to be more assured that your child is having a better experience at school? Okay? So listening with open-ended questions, step 1. Step 2, empathy. Express your empathy and know and convey to the parent that you know how they are feeling, that you know that, it's not that there's reason, that you understand what they're saying. And by conveying that empathy, you start to let them blow off that steam. You listened, they ranted, they are going to talk and talk and talk. And when you express empathy, it blows off the steam. The third step is you assure them that you understand what they're saying in the context of what they're saying, even if they're wrong. Even if you believe that they're wrong, you say that I know what you're saying and this is what it is. And point number 4, give them alternatives. Give them alternatives in a context where you are framing the alternative before and after with points that they.
I'm not able to hear Vidya. Is everybody able to hear her? Shireen? Vidya, we couldn't hear you for a brief few seconds. So the
Yeah,
last
I'm back now. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm back now. Yeah.
sure.
So the 4-step process, you listen with open-ended questions, empathy. Fourth, you express understanding. And fourth step, you suggest alternatives. But in those alternatives, you sandwich your suggestions between the parents' concerns.
Wow.
That's what happens. And that's probably the best way to handle a parent.
Super. And this certainly requires a lot of patience and great communication skills to reach to these 4 steps. And
I know it takes a lot of patience, Imran, to be a teacher. Oh,
and
yeah.
an educator, and talking to any other stakeholders. I hear you, Vidya. You have one more question. Thank you for the information about the course. How many hours of total efforts needed to complete the course?
Yeah, so like I said, this is a course that's going to be delivered in 3 sittings, in 3 different sessions, on 3 consecutive weeks, starting mid-Feb. So if you have each session for 120 minutes or 2 hours, there will be a brief break during the session. I'm going to try my best to minimize the amount of quote unquote homework that is needed. The kind of homework that would be needed for a short term certificate program is most likely reflective. So, because that is the most powerful. And reflective homework really should be pretty instant because you should know yourself. And it's a matter of making notes of where you are and where you want to go. And it shouldn't take you more than a few minutes. So, no, it's not taxing at all.
All right, sounds good. I had a question. Would you recommend this course even for people who are at senior leadership positions and who have been there, done that? And if you do recommend for that segment also, what are the reasons?
I think if you're at a senior leadership position, it is more applicable to you. It is more relevant and more critical because with great power comes great responsibility. And when you have the power to effect change, you I would hope that you also have the communication skills to go with it to bring about that change.
Right.
And when you are talking about 2 humans interacting as social animals, there is no place for hierarchy. So it's a strange combination of you having power, being in a position of responsibility, and you are also feeling feelings, and you're also impacting how other people think and feel. So if you were a senior leader and you have not enrolled yourself in a communication program, I think you're doing yourself a great disservice. Not just yourself, but if there are other seniors in your school, I think they should also sit in this program. And that's really how critical it is for you.
Super. All right. That answers my question and pretty much answers all the audience questions that we have so far. I thank you a lot, Vidya, because you have touched upon a topic which is very much taken for granted. I'm sorry to use this word. Once we have some kind of experience, we feel, well, yeah, of course I can communicate. But that's not the reality. And we could nurture so many relationships and we could make so much difference in a child's life. As you said, it has a trickle effect. You know, the child is carrying even that small word that his or her teacher said. So yeah, communication is the key, underlying key for all the stakeholders that we work in education today. So I thank you, Vidya, and I look forward to your course, which will start in mid-Feb. And I hope all the participants that we have from different countries will be registering for this course. And as a protocol, we will be sending you the information about this course to all the participants who have registered with us. In case you haven't registered, please send us your email IDs so that we can include you for the information of this course. I thank you once again, Vidya, before I wrap up, and we hope to see you soon.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, CCE, for having me, and for all the participants for joining us. Wherever you are, good morning, have a good day, good evening, good night, get a good night's sleep, feel good about yourself, and I hope to be in conversation with you soon. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Vidya. And before we wrap, I would like to remind all our educators community that we have the theme that we have to follow on this International Day of Education 2021, recover and revitalize. Revitalize and recover wherever you are for the education, given that we are entering into territory of a complete new normal, which might change every day. So good luck to each of my educator family member, and we wish you all the very best. And we are signing off from CCE Finland. Thank you very much and best wishes.
Thank you.